Amelia Earhart vanished in 1937, but the world didn't let her go. Because mysteries like this do not fade, they evolve. And over the decades, new evidence surfaced, clues that reignited hope, debate, and obsession. This is the story of the search that never truly stopped. In the immediate aftermath of Earhart's disappearance, a wave of strange distress calls rippled across the Pacific. Radio stations from Hawaii to Australia reported hearing faint, broken signals. A woman's voice, desperate and weak, cutting through the static. Some operators were convinced it was Amelia, stranded on some forgotten reef, still alive. One message, pieced together from multiple reports, chillingly said, "We can't stay here long, help us." But the radio technology of the 1930s was primitive. Pinpointing a location was nearly impossible. The signals were too fragmented to verify, and with every hour that passed, the static grew louder, and the hope faded into silence. Then, in 1940, a new clue emerged from a tiny, uninhabited atoll called Nikomaroro, hundreds of miles from Earhart's intended flight path. A British colonial officer, exploring the island, stumbled upon a partial human skeleton, a woman's shoe, and parts of a sextant box, a navigation tool. Initially, the bones were measured and dismissed, assumed to belong to a male castaway. The file was closed. But decades later, armed with modern forensic science, researchers revisited the case. A reanalysis of the original measurements suggested something stunning. The bones were likely those of a female of European ancestry, matching Amelia Earhart's height and body proportions with a high degree of probability. It was a bombshell revelation. But a crucial piece was missing. There was no aircraft wreckage. So, the debate continued, fueled by tantalizing evidence but no definitive proof. As the 21st century dawned, the search for Amelia Earhart entered a new, high-tech era. Organizations like TIAR, the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, and the deep ocean exploration firm Nauticus, launched multi-million-dollar expeditions. They armed themselves with advanced technology that Earhart herself could only have dreamed of. Autonomous underwater vehicles and sonar drones began methodically scanning the vast, dark seabed around Nikomaroro. Remotely operated submersibles, or ROVs, trailed the ocean floor, sending back ghostly images from the abyss. But the Pacific is an unforgiving place. Its sheer scale is difficult to comprehend, with trenches that plunge deeper than Mount Everest is tall. After countless hours and millions of dollars, the searchers returned with only ambiguous fragments of metal, none of which could be definitively linked to her Lockheed Electra 1OE. The ocean, it seemed, was holding its secrets tight. While some looked to the deep ocean, others turned to human memory. On the island of Saipan, far to the north of Earhart's route, a different theory took root. For years, local elders had shared stories, claiming they saw two white foreigners, a man and a woman, captured by Japanese forces around the time of the disappearance. They described the woman as having short hair and a confident, pilot-like presence. These accounts suggested Earhart and Noonan might have been captured as spies. But decades had passed. Memories blur, details shift, and stories can transform into legends. Without official records or physical proof, this theory remains suspended in a gray area between history and folklore. A powerful narrative that continues to fascinate but eludes verification. So why does this mystery endure? Most disappearances, even tragic ones, are eventually solved through investigation and evidence. But this one became something more. The search for Amelia Earhart became a mirror, reflecting our own ambitions, our courage, our fears of failure, and our deep-seated curiosity about the unknown. Amelia wasn't just trying to set a record. She was challenging the very limits of what humans believed was possible in her time. Her disappearance didn't diminish her legacy. It amplified it, turning her from a historical figure into a timeless icon of daring and adventure. She represents a spirit of pushing boundaries, and her unresolved fate leaves a question mark that we all, in our own way, feel compelled to answer. In the end, there are many theories, each with its own believers. Some say her plane rests at the bottom of the Pacific, a silent monument in the crushing dark. Some say she and Noonan survived the crash, only to perish on a remote island. Others believe she lived out her days under a new identity, a spy's secret. And some simply believe the ocean chose silence over answers. But maybe the real story isn't how Amelia Earhart died. Maybe the real story is how she lived. how she looked at the vast, open sky and saw not a barrier, but a highway, and how the sky opened for her in ways it never had for anyone before. The search for Amelia Earhart continues, not just in oceans and archives, but in the heart of every person who dares to go a little further than the world expects. History often remembers Amelia Earhart for how she disappeared, but perhaps the more important story is how she lived. To understand her final flight, we must first understand the person behind the controls, a woman, driven not by fame, but by a profound sense of purpose. Amelia Earhart grew up believing that limitations were merely suggestions, not laws. In her personal journals, she wrote with a clarity that still resonates today. Courage is the price that life exacts for granting peace. This wasn't just a casual observation. It was her guiding principle. Throughout her career, she faced a constant barrage of criticism, doubt, and even outright ridicule. People questioned her skills, her motives, her very right to be in a cockpit. But she continued to fly. She wasn't seeking applause or validation from others. She flew because the sky called to her, offering a sense of freedom and possibility that she couldn't find on the ground. For Amelia, flying was a deeply personal act, a conversation between her spirit and the vast expanse above. In the days leading up to her fateful world flight attempt in 1937, Amelia exuded a quiet, unshakable determination. She and her navigator, Fred Noonan, were acutely aware of the immense risks. This wasn't a joyride. It was a monumental undertaking at the very edge of human capability. Long-distance navigation was still a developing science, relying on celestial readings and dead reckoning over thousands of miles of open ocean, where the forecasting was rudimentary and a sudden storm could appear with little warning. The communication technology of the era was fragile and unreliable, making contact with ground stations a constant challenge. Yet, despite all these dangers, Amelia believed in the mission. She held a firm conviction that humanity progressed by pushing forward into the unknown, not by standing still in the safety of the familiar. Her perspective is powerfully captured in a final letter she wrote to her husband, George Putnam, to be opened only if she didn't return. She wrote, "Please know I am quite aware of the hazards. I want to do it because I want to do it." There was no hesitation, no hint of being pressured into it. It was a choice born from her own fierce desire to explore the limits of her world. When her Lockheed Electra vanished over the Pacific Ocean, the world held its breath. The search was one of the largest in history, but it yielded nothing. In the void left by her absence, something extraordinary began to happen. Amelia Earhart transformed from a celebrated pilot into something more enduring, a global symbol. Her story took on a life of its own, capturing the imagination of millions. Schools and libraries were named in her honor, becoming places of learning and aspiration. Countless books and films have attempted to tell her story, each adding another layer to her legend. Even NASA, an organization dedicated to exploring the final frontier, named research facilities after her, acknowledging her as a pioneer of exploration. Her disappearance created a legend, a mystery that continues to fascinate us. But it was her actions, her life lived with such purpose, that created her true legacy. For generations of young women, and men too, who felt confined by societal expectations, Amelia became a beacon. They saw their own dreams of adventure and achievement reflected in her unwavering courage. The impact she had on aviation, particularly for women, is staggering. Before Earhart, the number of licensed female pilots worldwide could be counted on one hand. It was a field dominated entirely by men. Today, that landscape is unrecognizable. Tens of thousands of women fly commercial airliners, command military jets on complex missions, pilot research aircraft into the heart of storms, and even captain vessels for space exploration. When you speak to many of these modern pioneers, a common thread emerges. Amelia Earhart was their spark. She wasn't just a trailblazer who broke a few barriers. She demonstrated to the world that the barriers themselves were illusions, ready to be shattered by anyone with enough courage and determination. She didn't just open a door. She showed that the sky was open to everyone. So, why does her story still matter so much, all these decades later? The mystery of her disappearance is, of course, a compelling part of it. It remains one of the great unsolved enigmas of the 20th century. But mysteries endure for a reason. They serve as powerful reminders that not everything in life is meant to be neatly concluded or fully known. Some stories aren't meant to have a final chapter. Their purpose is to inspire, to provoke thought, and to ignite our own sense of wonder. Perhaps, in a poetic sense, the sky wanted to keep one of its own, the pilot who loved it so fiercely. Amelia Earhart once wrote, Adventure is worthwhile in itself. Her final journey may never be fully understood, and the precise details of her fate may forever be lost to the vastness of the Pacific. But the world she helped shape and the countless doors she opened for others, unmistakable and all around us. A plane vanished into the clouds, but a legend rose in its place. And because of her, the world has been looking up to the sky with a little more. Some disappearances become footnotes in history, but others become obsessions. Amelia Earhart's vanishing was not just an aviation mystery. It became a mirror reflecting something much deeper within us. Our undying fascination with the unknown. It's a story that asks a question we can't seem to answer, and a mystery we simply can't let go. When Amelia Earhart disappeared over the vast Pacific Ocean in 1937, the world held its breath, expecting answers. News flashes, radio bulletins, government statements. Everyone waited for the final word on the fate of the world's most famous female pilot. But those definitive answers never came. And in that deafening silence, something powerful and unexpected happened. People began to fill the void. They filled it with theories, with stories, with hopes, and with fears. Newspaper headlines stretched across continents, each one proposing a new possibility. Radio debates crackled through the airwaves for months, with experts and amateurs alike offering their 2 cents. The official search effort, one of the largest in naval history at the time, continued long after logic and resources suggested it was time to stop. Why? Because for a world that prided itself on progress and discovery, the simple idea of not knowing was almost unbearable. It was a failure of technology, a failure of exploration, a failure of the modern age to provide a conclusion. The silence was an open wound, and society felt an overwhelming urge to close it. To understand why this particular case became such a cultural phenomenon, you have to look at the era. The 1930s was a time of incredible transformation. Aviation was still new, almost magical. It was the final frontier on Earth, a realm of high-stakes danger and breathtaking discovery. Pilots were the new explorers, charting the empty spaces on the map. Amelia Earhart's story perfectly symbolized that razor's edge between the known and the unknowable. Her ambition, her flight, her very existence represented humanity's boundless courage and our drive to push past our limits. And in turn, her disappearance came to represent the harsh reality of those limits. She flew to the edge of the world, and in doing so, showed us exactly where the map ended. The story wasn't just about a lost plane. It was a grand narrative about humanity versus the vast, indifferent power of nature. There is a deep psychological reason why this story has such a powerful grip on our collective imagination. Psychologists refer to the mental state created by unresolved events as a cognitive void. It's a fundamental part of human nature. When our brains are presented with a story that has no ending, we feel a deep sense of unease, a cognitive dissonance. Our minds instinctively work overtime to fill in the gaps, to create a narrative that makes sense. This is precisely why the Amelia Earhart story refuses to settle down and become a dusty historical fact. Every supposed new clue, a piece of wreckage, an old photograph, a garbled radio transmission feels like it could finally be the one. Every new theory, from crashing on a remote island to being captured as a spy, feels just plausible enough to almost explain everything. Our minds crave resolution, and this mystery offers none, forcing us to become detectives ourselves, endlessly sifting through the possibilities. Over the decades, as the trail grew colder, Amelia Earhart's narrative moved beyond the pages of history and into the realm of legend. Her story became a canvas for our own interpretations. Books reimagined her final, desperate days, offering fictionalized accounts that felt emotionally true even if they weren't factually proven. Hollywood films romanticized her courage and her adventurous spirit, turning her into a tragic, glamorous hero. Artists painted her not just as a pilot, but as a soaring symbol of freedom, of untamed adventure, and of eternal mystery. She transcended the person she was. She became a myth, a powerful story woven so deeply into our cultural memory that her name now stands for something far greater than a single historical event. She represents the allure of the unsolved, the spirit of exploration that dares to fly into the storm. What's truly remarkable is that the search continues. Even now, nearly a century later, dedicated research teams launch multi-million-dollar expeditions into the Pacific. They deploy state-of-the-art technology, deep-sea submersibles, advanced sonar scanners, underwater drones, all combing the ocean floor for a single clue. But if you ask them why, the answer often goes beyond simple closure. It's not just about finding a plane. To search for Amelia is to engage in a deeply human quest. It's a refusal to surrender to the unknown. It is a way of confronting that profound, unanswered question the world has been asking for generations. Each new expedition is a testament to our species' stubborn, hopeful, and relentless drive to find meaning in mystery itself. It's about proving that no question is too big to ask, and no horizon is too distant to explore. So, maybe we should reframe how we see this story. Maybe Amelia Earhart's final flight wasn't just a tragedy. Maybe it was a transition. A transition from a person into a permanent question. Some stories, it seems, are not meant to end neatly with a period. Some stories are meant to echo through time, to keep us wondering, to keep us looking up at the sky. Her disappearance serves as a powerful reminder. Even in our modern age of satellites, GPS, global data networks, and maps that cover every inch of the planet, there are still places where the world remains silent, where our technology fails, and where questions hang unanswered in the air. And perhaps that silence isn't a failure at all. Perhaps that silence is the final frontier. With every decade, new files, photos, and testimonies have emerged. Some were dismissed, some were suppressed, and some raised questions louder than before. The disappearance of Amelia Earhart is a mystery that has captivated us for nearly a century. We were told she ran out of fuel and was lost to the sea. But what if the truth is something else entirely? What if the evidence has been hiding in plain sight all along? This is the evidence they didn't want us to see. In the late 20th century, a wave of declassification began. Under Public Disclosure Acts, the US government released thousands of documents, once hidden from public view. Buried among routine naval logs and dry intelligence summaries, a series of anomalies started to appear. There were references to an unknown civilian aircraft sighted in the Pacific regions, right around the time Earhart vanished. One report, dated just days after her disappearance, explicitly mentioned an unconfirmed sighting of an aircraft near the Marshall Islands. At the time, the US Navy publicly dismissed this claim as just another unsubstantiated rumor. But privately, things were different. Internal memos revealed that behind closed doors, this sighting was taken very seriously. The official narrative was simple, but the private communications painted a far more complex picture. Why the public dismissal if the sighting was credible enough for internal discussion? Decades later, on the remote atolls of the Marshall Islands, a different kind of evidence surfaced, not on paper, but in the voices of the people. Local residents began sharing personal accounts, passed down through generations. These weren't just vague stories. They were detailed, consistent narratives. Many described a plane, not crashing, but landing on the reef. They spoke of a woman and a man, clearly not from the islands, being seen escorted by foreign military personnel. When asked to describe the woman, their accounts were strikingly consistent with Amelia Earhart: short hair, practical flight clothes, and a calm, composed posture, even in the face of uncertainty. These accounts remained as oral history, preserved in memory rather than ink. Skeptics, of course, argue that memory distorts over time, that stories evolve with each telling. But when multiple independent accounts from different families and different islands all tell the same fundamental story, it becomes much harder to dismiss. Then, in 2017, came a piece of evidence that sent shockwaves through the historical community. A photograph surfaced from the US National Archives. It wasn't a new photo. It had been sitting there for years, misfiled or overlooked. The image shows a group of people on a pier in Jaluit Atoll, in the Marshall Islands. On the far right, a man with a distinctively receding hairline stands with his back to the camera. And sitting on the edge of the pier is a woman with a build, a shoulder-line posture, and a short haircut that are all uncannily similar to Amelia Earhart's. The man standing nearby shares the facial structure and stance of her navigator, Fred Noonan. Critics immediately pushed back, arguing the photo could have been taken before 1937, that it was a case of mistaken identity. But supporters pointed to the metadata and archival category, which suggested otherwise. The photograph did not prove her fate, but it presented a possibility so tangible, it refused to be ignored. The trail then leads to another set of archives, this time belonging to the Japanese military. Given the political climate of the late 1930s and Japan's significant presence in the Pacific, many researchers believed that if Earhart and Noonan had landed in Japanese-controlled territory, there would be a record. The search has been difficult. Some files from that era remain unavailable, restricted, or have been reported as lost or destroyed during the war. However, a handful of surviving naval reports have been uncovered. They reference to foreign individuals detained on Pacific Islands during that exact time period. No names were included. No positive identifications were ever confirmed, but the timing aligns perfectly. Redacted pages and blurred script hint at a story that authorities, for one reason or another, did not want fully documented. In recent years, modern technology has allowed us to re-examine the old evidence with new eyes. Forensic facial recognition software, the same kind used in modern investigations, has been used to compare the figures in that controversial photograph. The software compared the woman on the pier to known images of Amelia Earhart, and the man beside her to Fred Noonan. The results were compelling. The software indicated multiple structural similarity matches, particularly in the bone alignment around the jaw and the brow. These results were not presented as definitive proof. A computer algorithm can't solve a historical mystery on its own, but they weren't dismissed as mere coincidence either. For a mystery nearly a century old, even small, data-driven confirmations carry immense weight. It suggests the resemblance is more than just a passing similarity. Today, the search continues, but the tools have evolved beyond anything imaginable. In 1937, underwater scanning technology and satellite-based ocean floor imaging have opened up new frontiers. Teams are now able to deploy submersible drones and sonar mapping to chart ocean trenches once thought completely unreachable. One particular region, an atoll known as Nikomaroro, has drawn increasing scientific interests. It lies along Earhart's flight path. An analysis of the reef has revealed patterns in coral damage consistent with a plane landing. More intriguing are the metallic signature readings from the deep ocean nearby. No wreckage has been recovered yet, but the scans show shapes anomalies on the seafloor that do not appear to belong there naturally. The search for Amelia Earhart is no longer just a historical quest. It's an active, ongoing scientific investigation. From declassified documents and island testimonies to a controversial photograph and cutting-edge sonar scans, the evidence paints a picture of a story far from over. Thank you for watching. If you found this investigation as fascinating as we do, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to join us on our next exploration into history's greatest unanswered questions. Today, nearly 90 years after Amelia Earhart vanished, the search has expanded far beyond government agencies. Now, a new generation of private explorers, deep-sea engineers, and independent research groups are racing to uncover what the ocean has so carefully guarded for decades. The mystery of what happened on that final flight in 1937 has captivated the world. But for the first time, we have the technology to potentially find a definitive answer. This is the story of the modern hunt for Amelia Earhart, a high-tech expedition into the deepest, darkest corners of the Pacific Ocean. Deep-sea exploration used to be a battle against impossible odds. The immense pressure, the absolute darkness, and the sheer distance from the surface made searching the ocean floor a near-futile effort. But that has all changed. Modern remotely operated vehicles, or ROVs, have revolutionized our ability to explore these alien environments. These underwater robots can now descend more than 6,000 meters below the surface, an incredible depth where the pressure would crush a conventional submarine in an instant. Equipped with highly sensitive cameras that can operate in near-total darkness and advanced sonar systems, these ROVs can paint a detailed picture of the seabed. Their sonar can detect shapes and forms buried beneath layers of coral, sand, and time itself. What was once dismissed as impossible to find is now becoming a matter of patience, persistence, and, of course, funding. The tools are here. The question is no longer if we can find the wreckage, but when. At the forefront of this new private search are two key organizations, each bringing unique expertise to the table. The first is the Nauticos Group. They are renowned for their advanced ocean scanning technologies and their proprietary deep charting sonar systems. They specialize in creating incredibly detailed maps of the seabed, looking for anything that seems out of place, any anomaly that could be a clue. The second major player is the Ocean Exploration Trust, founded by the legendary Dr. Robert Ballard. This is the same man who stunned the world in 1985 when he discovered the wreck of the Titanic. Dr. Ballard has dedicated his life to pushing the boundaries of ocean exploration, and he believes that Earhart's plane can be found. Both of these organizations have already mapped thousands of square miles of the Pacific floor, meticulously combing through the data in their search for the lost Electra. Their ships are state-of-the-art, and their control rooms look like something out of a science fiction movie, filled with sonar screens displaying digital ocean maps and real-time data feeds from the depths. So, What have they actually found so far? Well, the findings are both tantalizing and frustrating. During multiple deep water surveys, researchers have recorded several metallic anomalies resting along steep underwater cliff slopes. The shapes are irregular and heavily encrusted, but crucially, they do not match any known natural geological formations. These aren't just rocks. On closer inspection, using sonar heat maps and robotic probes, some of these sites contain fragments that are highly suggestive of an aircraft. One appears to be a piece of riveted aluminum plating, consistent with the construction techniques of the 1930s. Another find is a long, bent wing-like structure, twisted by pressure and time. Perhaps most compelling is a cylindrical component that closely resembles the landing gear from a Lockheed Electra 10E, Earhart's specific model of plane. However, confirming these finds is incredibly difficult. The immense ocean pressure has distorted the metal, and decades of coral growth have camouflaged the wreckage, making it almost indistinguishable from the surrounding reef. The ocean does not reveal its secrets easily. To understand why finding wreckage in the Pacific is so challenging, you have to appreciate the sheer scale and hostility of the environment. The Pacific Ocean is deeper than most people can even comprehend. In some regions, like the Mariana Trench, it drops to more than 36,000 feet. That's deeper than the height of Mount Everest. If you were to place the world's tallest mountain at the bottom of the trench, its peak would still be more than a mile beneath the waves. Powerful, unpredictable deep-sea currents can shift debris for miles, scattering a wreck site over a vast area. Over time, sand and sediment consume metal, burying it completely, and in the warmer waters, coral grows over wreckage like living stone, encasing it in a natural tomb. Even massive vessels, like warships from World War II, have vanished completely in these depths. If Amelia's lightweight aircraft sank in one of these deep zones, it may be resting in a place where sunlight has never, ever touched. One of the most compelling theories in the modern search centers on a remote atoll called Recent high-resolution imagery of the reef's underwater slope has revealed indentation patterns that are consistent with a large, heavy object sliding downward over time. Some researchers believe this is the final resting place of the Electra. The theory goes that Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan, may have successfully landed the plane on the flat part of the reef at low tide. They might have remained there, intact, for several days. This would explain a number of nagging mysteries. First, it would account for the numerous distress radio signals that were heard for days after the disappearance. If they were on land, they could have used the plane's radio. Second, it would explain the various artifacts found on the island over the years, including remnants of a shoe, a sextant box, and other items that suggest castaways were present. Finally, it would explain the lack of surface wreckage found during the initial search. If the plane was on the reef, powerful storms and tidal erosion could have eventually pulled it off the ledge and into the deep water below, where it slid down the steep slope and out of sight. With this new evidence and a focused theory, the search continues. Another major expedition is being planned, and it will be the most advanced one yet. This new mission will deploy newer, more powerful sonar systems capable of penetrating deeper layers of sediment. They will use higher resolution 3D seabed mapping to create a photorealistic model of the target area. And for the first time, they will employ AI-assisted debris pattern analysis. This artificial intelligence will sift through terabytes of data, looking for patterns that the human eye might miss, predicting where debris fields are most likely to be located. This time, the search won't focus on broad, sweeping scans of the open ocean. Instead, it will be a highly targeted effort, focusing on the precise underwater slopes where physics and erosion models suggest the aircraft would have finally settled. The mission planning rooms are already buzzing with activity. Coordinates are being overlaid on digital maps, and a new generation of explorers is preparing their vessel to depart. The hunt for Amelia Earhart has entered a new chapter, driven by technology and an unwavering belief that the truth is out there, waiting to be discovered in the silent, crushing darkness of the Pacific. Thank you so much for watching. If you're as fascinated by this story as I am, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our updates on this incredible search. We'll be following it every step of the way. Even decades later, the Pacific keeps its secrets. Amelia Earhart's disappearance isn't just a historical event, it's a riddle that refuses to be solved. Every expedition, every artifact, every faint whisper from the islands tells a story that remains incomplete. The story begins not with an answer, but with a question that echoes across the vast, blue expanse. What happened to Amelia? On remote atolls, scattered across the Pacific like lost jewels, researchers have found fragments that ignite the imagination. Pieces of metal, scraps of cloth, and remnants that might have belonged to Earhart and her navigator, Fred Noonan. These are not just objects. They are echoes of a vanished world. Eyewitness accounts, passed down through generations on these islands, tell stories of a woman walking along the shore, a figure described as strong, determined, maybe a pilot. Of course, nothing is confirmed. The stories are fragmented, the evidence circumstantial, and yet, each piece, each whisper, pulls us deeper into the mystery, inviting us to connect the dots in a puzzle with 1,000 missing pieces. In the harrowing weeks following her disappearance in July 1937, a series of faint radio transmissions crackled to life across the Pacific. Some were dismissed as static, mere interference in the vast emptiness of the airwaves. But others sounded chillingly real. Reports from naval ships and amateur radio operators described a woman's voice, calling out coordinates, her words broken and desperate before fading back into the noise. Decades later, enthusiasts and historians, armed with modern technology, still pore over these recordings, trying to filter the signal from the static. Every distorted word, every potential plea for help, is a tantalizing clue. It's a ghost in the machine, a voice reaching out from the past, offering a chance, however slim, to unlock the truth. One theory, more than any other, has captivated the public imagination and fueled decades of research: the Nikomaroro hypothesis. This uninhabited atoll, once known as Gardner Island, lies tantalizingly close to Earhart's intended flight path. Here, the evidence seems to pile up. Metal fragments consistent with her aircraft, a sextant box from the 1930s, and most compellingly, partial skeletal remains discovered in 1940. Initially dismissed, these bones were later re-examined using modern forensic techniques, with some researchers concluding they were likely those of a woman of European ancestry, matching Earhart's height. Skeptics argue it's all coincidence, a collection of unrelated debris washed ashore. But for believers, Nikomaroro holds the shadow of Earhart's final days. The island itself seems to whisper her name, its silent shores a stage for a tragedy we can only imagine. The debate rages on, a testament to how this mystery fuels our fascination, our hope, and our collective imagination. The search for Amelia Earhart is a story of incredible human determination. It's not just a professional endeavor. It's a personal obsession for many. Families have dedicated their fortunes, historians their careers, and divers their lives to combing the Pacific. This isn't just a search for a lost plane. It's a search for meaning, for a symbol of courage, and a desire to confront the unknown. Every new expedition, every high-tech sonar scan of the ocean floor, every newly discovered clue keeps her memory alive. It's a multi-generational quest, a relay race of discovery, where the baton of curiosity is passed from one searcher to the next, all driven by the unyielding human spirit to find answers where there are none. The search itself has become as legendary as the disappearance. Today, the hunt continues with technology that would have been science fiction in Earhart's time. We have submersibles that can map deep-sea trenches, once thought unreachable. Artificial intelligence analyzes terabytes of sonar data, looking for shapes that don't belong on the ocean floor. Satellites sweep over remote islands, searching for anomalies, for any sign of a 1930s aircraft. But with every potential lead, more questions arise. A promising sonar image turns out to be a natural rock formation. A piece of metal is found to be from a different wreck. The ocean remains vast and indifferent. Its silence is absolute, a powerful force that guards its secrets jealously. And in that profound silence, the story of Amelia Earhart continues to haunt and inspire us. A ghost we can't stop chasing. The clues are scattered like breadcrumbs across an ocean. The signals are faint whispers in a sea of static. The islands hold secrets we may never fully understand. Perhaps some mysteries are meant to remain unsolved, not to frustrate us, but to inspire us. Perhaps the enduring power of Amelia Earhart's story isn't in the final answer, but in the search itself. It's in the courage it took for her to fly, and the relentless passion of those who follow in her wake. And so, Amelia Earhart waits, somewhere in the space between history and legend, a permanent fixture in our collective consciousness. And the world waits with her. For decades, the vast Pacific Ocean has guarded its secrets with a silent, unwavering grip. Among its greatest mysteries is the final flight of Amelia Earhart. Her disappearance wasn't just a story about a lost plane. It was a saga of immense courage, unyielding ambition, and a bold leap into the vast unknown. Tonight, we gather the scattered fragments of her last journey. following the faint trail of clues toward what might be its ultimate, haunting conclusion. Over the many years since she vanished, dedicated researchers have painstakingly uncovered fragments that could belong to her legendary aircraft. Small, weathered pieces of aluminum, scraps of equipment, and even personal artifacts have washed ashore, suggesting a crash near remote, uninhabited islands. When you combine these physical clues with the faint, desperate radio transmissions that were picked up during her final hours, and the historical eyewitness accounts from islanders who claim to have seen or heard an airplane in distress, a picture begins to form. It's a picture that points to a final, desperate struggle to survive in the unforgiving expanse of the world's largest ocean. Each piece of evidence, no matter how small, adds another layer to this enduring enigma, pulling us deeper into the search for answers. But to truly understand this mystery, we have to remember the person at its center. Amelia Earhart was so much more than just an aviator. She was a true pioneer, a global symbol of bravery, and a woman who was relentlessly driven to push beyond the boundaries of the known world. At a time when women's roles were heavily restricted, she took to the skies and showed everyone what was possible. Her disappearance serves as a powerful reminder of the fragility of life, but also of the sheer scale of human ambition. The ongoing search for her isn't just about finding the wreckage of her plane. It's about connecting with her indomitable spirit, understanding her motivations, and honoring the legacy of a woman who dared to challenge the impossible. She represented a new era of exploration and courage that continues to resonate today. Now, in the 21st century, technology has given us tools that Amelia could have only dreamed of. We can now scan the deepest parts of the ocean and remote islands with a precision that was previously unimaginable. Advanced underwater drones equipped with high-resolution sonar glide silently through the depths, capturing images that hint at wreckage lying undisturbed on the seabed for nearly a century. Satellite mapping allows us to scrutinize tiny, forgotten islands that were once overlooked on old charts. And while the definitive final proof, the smoking gun that solves the mystery once and for all, may continue to elude us, the hunt itself keeps her story alive. Her journey of exploration continues through the efforts of those who search for her, inspiring new generations of explorers, historians, and dreamers who are drawn to her incredible story. Perhaps the true legacy of Amelia Earhart isn't about finding a definitive answer or achieving complete closure on her disappearance. Perhaps it lies in the enduring spirit of courage, curiosity, and perseverance that she inspires in all of us. Her story challenges us to confront our own unknowns, to dream bigger than we think is possible, and to honor the memory of all those who dare to fly beyond the established limits. She taught us that the journey is often as important as the destination, and that sometimes the greatest discoveries are made within ourselves when we push our own boundaries. Her flight into history encourages us to chase our own horizons. The Pacific Ocean may have kept its secrets, but Amelia Earhart's story will never be forgotten. She flew bravely into the unknown, leaving behind questions that we are still chasing today. Nearly a century later, her plane may rest silently beneath the waves, a lost relic from another time, but her courage, her spirit, and her legend continue to soar high above. Some mysteries, it seems, are eternal, and some heroes never truly leave us. Amelia Earhart is both forever a beacon of adventure, bravery, and the enduring human desire to explore. Thanks for watching.